Welcome to In Conversation with MANWAR podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Do Not Be a Bystander campaign. You can join us in raising awareness about bullying by visiting donotbeabystander.com, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay informed about upcoming episodes. Today's participants are Mabir, Fardeen, and Sophia. Our special guest of today's episode is Janet Jabush.
Welcome to our Bullying Awareness Podcast. I'm your host, Manwar Khan. Today I'm joined by three young individuals who are ready to share their thoughts and insights on the topic of bullying. They all have the same goal: eliminating bullying in school and communities. These young individuals are passionate about addressing the issue of bullying and willing to empower others. Today's participants are Mahabir, Sophia, and Fardeen. Thank you, Mahabir, Sophia, and Fardeen, for joining us today. Before we move on, I would like to introduce you with our special guest for today, and that's Janet. Janet will shed some light on bullying and give some tips and advice at the end of our podcast once our participants are done with their responses. I would like to talk a little bit about Janet. Um, uh, can make sure that Mavi, can you mute your system? Excellent, perfect. So I would like to talk a little bit about Janet here. So this is what I got is from Janet about her bio. It's not. It's everywhere. It's online. You can find many things about Janet. Janet is a motorcycle riding grandma who is also the mayor of the town of Myrthorpe. Janet is a lifelong learner who believes you are never too old to learn something new. In fact, she measures the success of each day by what she has learned. She loves classic cars and movies. The 1970 Cuda is her dream car. Janet is Avengers geek. My daughter is too. Iron Man is her favorite. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Janet, for joining us here today. And I know how busy you are with your campaign going on and coming election next week. But thank you. I really appreciate you being here for for us to join this podcast with the kids. All right. Now that we have introduced our participants and guests, let's get started with the questions. So the first questions for our participants, Mahabir. Empathy is powerful tool in addressing and preventing bullying. How can empathy help a bullying situation? Can you give us an example, Mahabir?
Bullies are usually bullies because they have been bullied before. They are like, when somebody's mean to them, they realize that they can't bully that person, so they want to shed all their anger on somebody that's younger than them. So, what we can do is we can be kind to those bullies, and if we're kind, they'll feel like, okay, being kind makes me feel good. And so they could try to make others feel good as well. And one example is, in my school there was a bully. He was always trying to, like, be mean to other kids. Whenever they were talking, he would say blah blah blah. He wouldn't listen to them. But what our teacher told us was that he has some problems, but that doesn't mean he's being mean, but that doesn't mean we have to be mean to him too. So whenever he did do something wrong, we didn't hit him about it. We didn't scream at him about it. We tried to make him understand. And in the end, he actually became a really good student, and now he's one of my friends.
Excellent. So it's kind of what you learned from that experience is like you guys did show empathy.
Mhm.
sympathy, and then you found that things got changed, right?
Yes.
So thank you for your answer, Mahabir. So by encouraging empathy, you can see we can work towards creating a society and values empathy, reject bullying, and supports the well-being of any individuals. Thank you so much. So my next question for you again, Mahabir, that's the last question for you. Uh, Compassion involves having a genuine concern of well-being and happiness of others. That's what we mean. So my question is, what does it mean to you being a compassion or compassionate, and how can you encourage others to be more compassionate towards people who is being bullied?
Okay, so what we can do, compassionate means th- to me that even when people are mean to you, you don't be mean to them. Like somebody punches you, you don't go, you punched me, I'll punch you back harder. You don't go like that. You go to somebody and then you tell them. Compassionate means like being able to feel that somebody is in discomfort. Like you're you're going after somebody and you're making fun of him in front of the whole class, and you think it's a joke, but you feel that the person is not feeling comfortable doing that, so you stop. And we can be more compassionate, and I can tell people to be more compassionate to those who are being bullied by giving them perspective. Like, how would you feel if you were being bullied? Wouldn't you want people to help you? Because if you're being bullied, the thing is, you feel alone. Like, no, but because nobody wants to stand up to the bully because they're afraid they'll get bullied too. So if you have more people, you'll feel a lot more braver.
Yep. And I agree with you. It helps being compassionate. It helps create a more inclusive and supportive environment when individuals feel valued, you said, understand and cared for. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mabi. So next participants, Fardeen. Promoting respect and empathy in school and communities is essential for preventing bullying. So, my first question for you is, how can we promote respect and empathy in school and communities to prevent bullying?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think first and foremost is fostering respect begins with education. I think schools play a vital role in instilling those values that promote understanding, acceptance, and compassion. I think by integrating comprehensive like anti-bullying programs into our education curriculum, we can educate students about the consequences of bullying and the importance of treating others with dignity and respect. And this could include like teaching empathy, encouraging open discussions, and even like developing conflict resolution skills within children's. I think by doing so we can empower students to become upstanders, individuals who stand up against bullying and support those who are targeted. However, I do believe that education not alone is not enough. To truly create a culture of respect, we must lead by example. As parents, teachers, and community leaders, we must model the respectful behavior in our interactions with others. We can by demonstrating like empathy, active listening, kindness. We show our children and our people younger than us and students what it means to treat others with dignity and create an inclusive environment. Moreover, building strong partnership between schools, families, and communities is also essential in preventing bullying. I think we must collaborate to create to create like safe spaces where individuals feel supported and valued. Uh, this can be achieved through organizing community events like workshops, any awareness uh, campaigns that highlights the importance of respect and empathy. Uh, like I do believe that by working together, we can raise awareness, share resources, and provide a network of support for those affected by bullying. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Fardeen. So, remember, promoting respect and empathy is an ongoing process, and that requires continuous efforts and reinforcement. It's not a one time thing. All right. So my next question for you, Fardeen. Respect is all about treating others with kindness, fairness, and consideration. Can you tell me how can you show respect towards your classmates, friends, and teachers? And how does showing respect help prevent bullying? Your opinion.
Yes. I think respect is not merely a polite gesture. It is a powerful force that can transform our interactions, relationships, and ultimately our entire school environment. Respect starts with active listening. When someone's speaking, let us truly listen without interruption or judgment. By acknowledging their thoughts and opinions, we show that we value their input and perspective. I think another way to demonstrate respect is through empathy. We must try to understand and appreciate the feelings and experiences and challenges of those around us. By placing ourselves in their shoes, we develop the compassion and become more sensitive to their needs. Um, Although respecting boundaries for sure essential. Each person has their own comfort zones and limits. Respecting these boundaries means understanding and honoring their personal spaces, privacy, and consent. We must recognize that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and autonomy. uh, when we treat our classmates, friends, teachers with respect, we create an atmosphere of trust and support. Like respect fosters positive relationships built on trust, understanding, and acceptance. And in such environment, I think bullying finds no room to thrive. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for your response. So, showing respect towards classmates is actually not only beneficial for them, but also create a more inclusive learning environment for everyone. That's what you meant. Excellent. Thank you so much, Fardin, for your answer. My next question is for Sophia. Kindness is a quality of being friendly, generous, considerate. It involves showing acts of goodwill, empathy, and care without expecting anything in return. So my question for you is, why is it important to be kind to others? When a person is unkind to another person, how do you think the other person may feel?
Thank you for the question. That's a good question. I'll answer the question. I want to follow up on what Fardeen said. I really liked his answer, but I know what our guest last episode said is treat people how you want to be treated, but also treat people how they want to be treated. And I think that really connects to what this episode is about being kind to others. But to answer your question, I think that when you're kind to others and you support and you help them, you are far more likely to be supported and helped in return. And that kind of has a reverse karma effect. I like the reverse karma effect, but it's because being mean doesn't really help anybody get anywhere. You don't make any friends, you don't make many allies that will actually support you and help you. But you also come off as confident, which helps your own growth and your credibility professionally and also personally. And I mean, when you think about it, if you're mean to somebody, imagine if someone was mean to you, and even worse, if that turned into real bullying. Well, that makes you sick. It starts off mentally, but then that turns to physical. So you just make somebody sick, and that's just cruel. So when you think about it like that, yes, step into your own shoes, but also think about you don't want to actually make someone sick. That's just not a very, that's just cruel. It's not a good thing to do. So yeah, that's my thoughts on this.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sophia, for your answer. Um, the next question for you is, what can you do if you see someone being mean to someone? What I mean, not being a bystander. What do you? That's basically my question is, what can you do if someone is being mean to somebody else? What is your role you think you can do?
Because there are several types of bullying, I think I'll kind of start off with physical. So if you see someone like being bullied and it's actually physical, that's when you can get security and adults involved, because you don't want to get into that and start throwing punches and all that. You don't want to get involved with something like that and make it worse. But also get photos and proof so that the adults can actually do something that actually makes it go forward. They have proof, something to go ahead with. And if it escalates, then they can actually go to law enforcement and have proof. It's not just a he said, she said kind of thing, or he said, she said kind of thing. But you can, I mean, you commented on this last episode, MANWAR, is you can become friends with whoever's being bullied so that they are welcomed in the community, and then they have a friend so that they feel less alone, they feel less picked on, they feel less backed into a corner. And that's another survival mode, kind of, you get into a fight or flight kind of position, which is very stressful. And then that's when anxiety and all these other negative emotions start to come up. But you can also go to the individual's parents. And when I was writing down these answers, I was thinking about also workplace bullying. And I don't have much experience or insight into bullying that happens at the workplace, but I can imagine similar to going to individuals' parents, which will know better how to kind of deal with those individuals. You could go to HR, or you could go to the people's bosses. I'm not sure how effective that would be, but that's kind of a similar thing. But it's just really good to know about your approach and think it through so that you don't make it worse. Because if you go to an adult and they actually can't do anything or nothing goes through, it can actually make it worse for the individual being bullied. So make sure you go to the right adults and you're able to think it through a little bit and get that proof, because that actually helps things go forward.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, it's funny that you talked about workplace bullying. Yes, bullying has a reputation at schoolyard, but it's now moved to workplace, playground, everywhere, right? And we have seen. I've been working with the government of Alberta for the last 15 years. Before that, I worked with some private companies, and I did not experience personally, but I have seen the situation of bullying. And the best thing would be you go and talk to your supervisor. That's the first thing you should be doing at workplace. You talk to your supervisor. If that does not work, yes, and then go and talk to HR or your supervisors.
Or
But
you can
there's
go outside and get support that's outside of the workplace. If you think that it actually will get nowhere, it's a toxic work environment, go to law enforcement or go to something that's outside of the workplace in order to get that support.
Exactly. It also depends on what kind of bullying is that.
Yeah.
If there are some places law enforcement agencies will not get involved at all.
Yeah.
If it is a workplace bullying and my supervisor is not talking to me and avoiding me and not inviting me in coffee with other people. So in that case, but trust me, I have found that there is always room for talk, and most of the problems can be resolved by talking and with empathy, what we just said. And but you are right, absolutely right. You guys are at school now, but I hope you don't have to experience that at workplace, but it is there. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to prepare you from now on, so that when it comes to that place, you guys at least know what are you are going through and how to handle it. Thank you so much, Sophia, for your answer. All right. So I guess I asked you two questions here. So I don't have any other questions for you. So with the completion of this questioning, we will move on to our final segment of this podcast. Now I would like to invite our special guest, Janet, to share some thoughts on bullying and give some advice to our participants and our viewers. Thank you, Janet.
Manwar, thank you so much for asking me to participate this morning. First of all, I would really like to say, I don't know how much I can teach these kids. They're all pretty dang smart. I have a page and a half of notes that I've made from the things that you guys have said. I think you guys are right on top of what you need to be on top of, and your schools are very, very lucky to have you as students in them. If you can teach others, but lead by example, as one of you so correctly said, if you guys can teach others how to do these things, share your knowledge, lead by example, you guys are going to make a huge impact in your schools. And then once you're out of school, you're going to make a huge impact in the world. You guys are really impressive kids. I don't know how old you are, but you know, wow, I'm absolutely amazed. So I have some experience with bullying. I was a very shy little girl. You'd never know that about me now, but I was a very shy little girl. I was poor. My clothes that I wore to school were hand-me-downs. I don't know if you know what that means, but somebody else had them before I got them. I got new shoes and I got new winter clothes every year, and you know, personal things, but all my clothes were hand-me-downs. So I went to school in hand-me-down clothes in good condition, but people recognize that. They recognize the shy kids, the ones that kind of sit in the corner and aren't necessarily out there doing all the things the other kids are doing. I was a smart kid. I was one of 3 kids in grade 1 who was put in a special program in my school where we kind of did 6 grades of elementary school in 5 years. So I was a smart kid. So that put me in a really small little group too. And by the time I got to be in grade 4.5, if you want to call it that, because I didn't go to grade 5. But by the time I got to be in grade 4.5 and in grade 6, the bullying wasn't just emotional anymore. It started to be physical. And I told teachers, like you suggested, I told authority figures, and I think that's absolutely the way to go. In this day and age now, most people have cell phones. So Sophia, your idea of getting proof that something actually happened, bang on, spot on. I think that's critical to holding people to account. The people that do these kinds of things, the bullies, need to face consequences for their behavior. In life, we all make choices, and those choices always come with consequences, good choices and bad choices. And I think it's important that we teach people that they're going to have to own up to their mistakes and try to do better, try to do something to change what they've done in the past. My mind is absolutely blown. I'm going to consider today a raging success because I have had the opportunity early in my day to learn from all 3 of you. And believe me when I tell, I'm not saying that to be nice. I have learned a lot from all 3 of you. You guys are outstanding individuals. The whole idea of treating people the way you want to be treated, that's a great start. But you hit the nail on the head when you said you have to treat people the way they want to be treated. Just because you don't, maybe you said something and you thought it was a joke or you think it's a joke, if the person that you said that to didn't think it was funny, then that's exactly what you were talking about. You have to treat people the way they want to be treated. Just because you think it's funny doesn't mean everybody thinks it's funny. I like the idea of collaborating to create safe spaces. I like the idea of teaching conflict resolution. And MANWAR is correct. It's a continuous effort. This is not something that you do one day and then say, okay, I did that, I'm good now. You have to do it every single day. It has to be something you do every single day. Again, I don't know how much more I can tell you guys about bullying. Oh, one other little piece of my story. When I was in junior high school, I was diagnosed with something called scoliosis, which is a curvature of the spine. I wore what's called a Milwaukee brace for 2 years. So I started high school with a thing that went like this, all the way from kind of my belly button all the way up to my neck. I couldn't do phys ed. I couldn't do any of those things. So I started high school in a situation, I was still pretty shy in high school, started high school in a situation where I was the perfect target for bullies. Luckily, I had some pretty good friends and they rallied around me. And you know what? That's the other thing. Somebody mentioned having people to support you. That's the other thing. Make sure you've got that posse, if you want to call it that, that'll have your back if you get into a situation. But yeah, you guys are amazing. I am absolutely blown away, Manwar. These are some really impressive kids you've managed to bring on your podcast to talk about bullying. So if I'm going to give you a little bit of advice before I wrap up here, I'm going to tell you what I told a group of high school students when I was speaking to the graduating class. My speech was about being who you are. Don't ever change who you are to fit in. That's not cool. You're not going to be happy with yourself, and ultimately you're doing yourself a disservice if you try to change who you are to fit in. Always be you. Build on your empathy. Definitely, as Fardeen mentioned, respect is like way, way, way up there when you're talking about empathy and standing up for bullies. I also really, really liked what Sophia said about not being a bystander. You see some of those things on YouTube now where they do those little things. They put plants in restaurants and have that kind of bully situation going on just to see if people, like perfect strangers, will do anything to help the person being bullied. It's amazing that so many people walk away, and I'm always really impressed by the ones that actually step up. So I'm going to leave you with one last little thing. My dad, who's been gone for a long, long, long time, used to recite a poem. And I think it speaks to who people need to be as individuals to succeed in life. I don't know who wrote the poem. It's very short. I don't know who wrote it, but my dad recited it often. And it goes like this: climb, though the mountainside is rough, and rocks on ridge and bluff bar your progress to the distant peaks sublime. Though your strength and heart are breaking, take pride in the fight you're making. Throw your rope around a higher rock and climb. And I will leave you with that and my absolute heartfelt gratitude for being able to participate in this program today. Thank you all so, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. We have came to the end of this podcast. I would like to thank our participants, Mahabir, Fardeen, and Sophia. And I also want to thank our special guest, Janet, for taking out of your busy schedule and coming here to say a few words. So just a funny question for you, Janet. It's not on my script. I'm just curious. So after you becoming a mayor, have you ever experienced bullying? Have you ever seen bullying situation?
At my age, Manwar, I wish I could tell you I didn't.
Okay. Steve,
I
so
I participate in a world where I'm dealing with adults every day. And one always assumes that eventually people will grow out of that kind of behavior, but sadly they don't. And the other sad thing is that as a woman, sometimes it's worse. Politics is sadly a male dominated arena. There's more men in politics than there is women. So I deal with men all the time, and they're not all like this. In fact, most of them are really good. There's just a few that you run into every now and then that still exhibit that kind of Neanderthal behavior, if you want to call it that. And so, yeah, I do deal with it. But you know what? I'm not that shy, backward, quiet little girl anymore. I am an outspoken, forthright woman, and I will not back away from a righteous fight.
Right.
Will not.
Excellent. So for the message for my participants here, even a person is a mayor of the city, she or he might experience bullying too. So
Exactly.
we really have to prepare ourselves. Okay. So that's why. Thank you so much, Janet. I really appreciate your time and answer. Thank you so much for listening to our today's podcast. Before we wrap up, I would like to remind our listeners that there are several resources available to help individuals dealing with bullying. Government of Alberta has a bullying helpline, which is 1-888-456-2323. Bullying is a violation of human rights. Under no circumstances is bullying acceptable. As a community, we have a shared responsibility to stand against bullying and not to be a bystander. Thank you very much for joining in conversation with Manwar Khan. We will see you next week.